I hope that today you guys can find some value in this discussion we have, and hopefully incite some, I guess, that as that roundtable discussion at the end, have some, I guess, good discussions there. So I guess as a first off, as a bit of introduction about myself. So I originally grew up in Canberra, and I basically did all my studies there up to year 11 and 12. And I've always had I guess, a passion for problem solving with design. And this led to, I guess, the questions that I had nearing the end of my school as to whether to go into, I guess, a career in industrial design or whether it be engineering, and also even considered surveying as well. And after, I guess, a lot of feedback and review from my peers, and I guess talking to as many people as I could, as well as a lot of work experience as well, I found the course that I guess I'm enrolled in now, which is out of Charles University. And essentially that really aligned with what I thought that I would fit well into. And that was based on 1.5 years of, I guess, project-based work on campus, and then having 4 years worth of, I guess, industry placement or paid industry placement, meaning that I could also, I guess, develop some of those, I guess, more soft skills like teamwork and negotiation and conflict resolution, but also then have the ability to apply the theory to, I guess, a practical application. And I was quite happy that my decision to go with Charles University, despite being only the second year that the course was run. And that primarily stemmed from, I guess, multiple reasons, one of which it was recognised as one of the top 4 innovative emerging engineering courses in the world by MIT. And it was also an introduction to, I guess, public works engineering for me. So during my second year on campus, I was able to, I guess, participate in a presentation by the then young IPWEA Ambassador of New South Wales, Kate Fennell, and not only doing a great presentation, but I was also able to have a discussion with her afterwards about what was involved in public works engineering. And after, I guess, consulting with some of my lecturers, peers as well, and then trying to gain some further experience through, I guess, small work placements, as well as, I guess, industry partners that were part of the uni, I decided that I would, I guess, begin my career off in public works engineering. And after doing a bit of research, I found out that the Eurobodalla Shire Council was particularly, I guess, involved in the development of young engineers, and subsequently applied for a job there as council's cadet asset engineer. And I was fortunate enough to get the job, and I've been here for the past 3 years. I've got 1 more year left before my degree finishes, and I'm hoping to basically continue working here after that. So I guess during university, or still studying now, but obviously the challenges we face can be, I guess, quite substantial. So I guess in the most basic form, there's the university itself. So obviously in engineering, we deal with a lot of, I guess, complex theoretical subjects, and particular ones of those I found challenging. I guess a lot of people have some of the more high level structural or geotechnical can be a bit difficult. And I sometimes used to get a bit overwhelmed by maybe not having an understanding as much as I'd want to on a lot of the subjects. And I guess during one of my assessments, I came across, basically we were doing soil nails and soil anchors. And I kind of almost came to the realization that within the broad scope of civil engineering, someone can essentially dedicate their whole life to learning about a very minute aspect of this, whether it be tunnel engineering or, for instance, soil anchors. And I guess that may have put a few things a bit more into perspective, just about how vast the industry is and the opportunities that there are there to specialize. I guess another challenge is that not so much with, I guess, my journey through university, but with your more traditional university, is getting that practical experience. So I think the stats, I might be wrong here, but I think it's around 6 weeks of work experience normally occurs with your traditional engineering degrees. And obviously 6 weeks, you get an idea, but I guess you don't really get the opportunity to develop a lot of the skills that might be required for that specific organisation. And then there's probably not that ability to get the very varied experience with different organisations as well. And that comes back to also that application of theory. So when I first started down the coast here, I used to be amazed at how on earth do we build a road? We have to make sure the water content's correct, have to make sure the plasticity is correct, make sure all the soils work. I guess that side of it, and I thought this is an immense job, when I went on site and learned how it worked, it turned to be that, you know, I guess the grader operators on site were able to basically, they understood what the, you know, moisture content needed to be in order to achieve the desired results. And I didn't notice so much in terms of, I guess, engineering terms, more so in practical terms. And it was, I guess a realization of how obviously there's some engineering projects and things like that where obviously the theory is really specialized in how it's applied, but then also the application of theory can be a lot more, I guess, broad or simpler than one first thought. Just touching on that private versus public sector, based on those discussions, I thought that whilst engineering is such a vast field, and I do want to get the most varied experience as possible before deciding to specialize, I ended up going with the public sector, and that's given me the opportunity to, I guess, see what engineering is in terms of the more theoretical side of it, whether it be drainage design or pavement design, or also the more, I guess, project side of it, whether it be project management or contract management, things like that. I guess another challenge that's faced by a lot of university students is applications and where and who to apply for. And there's that picture in the middle there is from, I guess, a Facebook group where someone posted all the applications they basically sent off as part of their internship. You can see that some of them.
Sorry, James. Sorry to interrupt you. We can't. I think we've received messages about people not being able to see the presentation. They're just seeing your view, the presenter's view. So I was wondering if you were aware of that. So.
That's disappointing. Can we see that now?
That's it now.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, to recap, that's the first slide, introduction about myself. That's my university cohort at CSU, and that there's down where I work. It's a photo that I was able to take as part of the work I initially did at council, was also to, I guess, document project progression with a drone, and that was I guess a bit of a sneaky photo I took during one of the jobs. This is what I was referring to just then, I guess the challenges that some people face, so the job applications. So you can see there that this individual basically applied for a substantial amount of jobs. They had no response from 69, rejected by 34, and then we basically reached out by one. So that they're working out where, I guess, to start off your career. And obviously a lot of the organizations want there to be prior experience, because obviously there's a cost and time, money component of, I guess, training people up. And this is just some of those challenges that are faced by, I guess, university students or engineering students. As I said before, the organisation that I work at is very much about, I guess, advocating for young professionals and working on development. And within 3 months of starting, I was, I guess, fortunate enough that one of the individuals that was planning to go to the IPWEA State Conference was unfortunately unable to go, and I was lucky enough to get his place. And this is probably it's definitely one of the major things within the beginning part of my career that kind of cemented my identification as an engineer. And this was really an introduction into what, I guess, real world engineering is about, or public works engineering is about. Had the opportunity at a very, I guess, inexperienced age, or with little experience, to be able to talk to, I guess, some amazing engineers, some of them world renowned. And it was, I guess, the fundamental impact of that, what it really increased my motivation and wanted me to, I guess, pursue a career in engineering, which had obviously direct benefits on my work at council here. Another component of going to the conference is also the networking side of it, where you are able to meet these people. And that's where I was able to meet Alan, who has, who's essentially, that relationship has formed into a lifelong friendship. And he's been, I guess that process has probably been the most beneficial to my professional as well as my personal development. So I'll let Alan do a bit of an introduction about himself now, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, James. Hi all, it's a pleasure to be here talking with young IPWEA. I believe it's extremely important that we give you, as business leaders, we give you every assistance we possibly can and guidance where appropriate. It's not something to go into lightly. some of the advice we give can actually affect the outcome of your career. So it is, if you find you're approaching someone and they're a bit reluctant, it's certainly not because of anything personal. It's purely, do they have the time? We're very conscious about the effort we put in is, it's always appreciated, but whether it's the right fit for that person always weighs heavily on us. So I'm the National Strategic Analyst for ARRB, which means I sit just below the CEO, and I'm responsible for establishing the strategic direction of the Australian Road Research Board in servicing our stakeholders. And if you didn't know it, local government is a stakeholder of ARRB. You own us, as well as federal and state governments. But I didn't start off as an engineer, and I'm not an engineer. I started off as an architect, and I worked all over the world. As you can tell from my accent, I was born in Scotland. And it's amazing how life and pathways take you, because I thought I would never know anything but architecture. But you will find that opportunities arise and interests arise and passions wane. To be successful in any career, you really have to immerse yourself in it. So when I was in architecture, all of my friends were architects or contractors. The magazines I read, the people I spoke to. I mean, at that time, things like Facebook and all the communications tools we have now didn't exist. So it was very much a face-to-face and a written or form of media. And an opportunity arose where I could actually change career path. And you can't plan for it. It just sneaks up on you. And it's whether you actually have the fortitude to make those decisions. A lot of it comes down to common sense and knowing, more importantly, what you don't want, rather than necessarily progressing the path to what you do want. I own a apple juice orchard and bottling plant, which got undermined because of inexpensive imports. And that brought me into politics. And within a very short period of time, I became the chairman of the Infrastructure Policy Committee. Now, part of that was due to my work in architecture, was a lot of public buildings and in large infrastructure anyway. So it seemed to be a good fit. I was a former Commonwealth and Senate candidate, patron of the Australian Confederation of Motor Clubs, which government was trying to actually get old cars off the road and all of us into new, nice, safe electric vehicles, but I didn't think that was fair. So we worked with government to make sure that legislation was safe, was affordable, and that we could keep our classic cars and historic vehicles and specialist vehicles on the road. I was also the former executive director of a road safety company. And a small business owner. I had a fitness center. So throughout my career, I've worked with everything from small business to large corporate structures. And I'm sure if all of you are talking to one another, the variety of the places you work will be quite stark. Those who work for the public service will have one perception of things. Those who work for a corporate will have other. So that's about me. I have many things I still want to do, but as you can see, there are differences between my generation and yours. I think if you can glance behind me at my rather messy home office, you will see that I've still got lots and lots of paper files. In fact, that's just a small amount of files compared to what I actually use. Most of you will have everything on computer.
Very good. So basically after meeting Alan at the state conference, I became, I guess, a bit more involved in the IPWEA committee, and I got a bit of, I guess, insight in about the coffee cup challenge. And this is essentially, I think you've probably all heard of it. It's basically a structured informal mentoring program where there's, I guess, three main focuses of the challenge, which is embodied in almost three meetings. And that's basically a focus on career direction, some of the challenges we might face and how to overcome these challenges. And essentially, this almost aligned perfectly with, I guess, the talks I'd had with Alan and I guess the knowledge he was willing to share. This is something that kind of embodied where I almost wanted the relationship to go in a sense, in this almost mentor-mentee. And after asking Alan and having him think about it for a bit, he was, I guess, willing to take that chance, and also that sense of responsibility, where the advice he was giving me did have the impact of potentially influencing my, I guess, my career decisions and things like that. And one of the, I guess, the important parts of, I guess, undertaking something like the Coffee Cup Challenge is it's not just the individual person that's, I guess, is being offered as a, I guess, a source of information. It's also the organisation they work for. So Alan works for ARRB. ARRB, I think we're what's the right word? Contracted by Austroads to write one of the pavement design guidelines. And subsequently, when I had a question about pavement design, I was able to speak to Dr. Michael Moffat, who is the one of the authors of the pavement design guidelines. And this, I guess, ability to not only have direct, I guess, information from the mentor as such, but also the organisation, it's probably one of the, I guess, a major component of being something in like the Coffee Cup Challenge that can also be overlooked. And I got a quote there from, I guess, someone else that's also been part of the program. And essentially, it's not like the normal mentoring program, but an opportunity to informally explore career dreams, challenges, and next steps along with personal and workplace relationships. And as I said before, it's something that I found incredibly valuable. And I think maybe if Alan, if you want to maybe share a few thoughts about why you specifically were, I guess, willing to undertake this with me specifically, and I guess maybe, I guess, some of the thoughts that were going through your, or considerations you had to have during that time.
Thanks, James. I mean, it's all about reading the person. I mean, when you get to our position in business and you've been around for quite some time, you get to read people and you get to get a sense of their passion for where they want to go. It's all about the individual at the end of the day, and then measuring that against the time you have available and whether you actually think you have the right experience in the right areas to impart. I think when I met James, I could sense that he was talking to me like an adult. Now, you would all think, well, you're all in your 20s or 30s. Should we be perceived as adults? Well, because you spent so long at university, what I'm talking about is in sector maturity. It's your knowledge of the sector, your willingness to learn more. One of the first things that I made sure that James could do was to meet the people who decide whether infrastructure in Australia is to be funded or not, where the pipelines are. It's important to know that the work you do is not in silos. It is part of something much bigger. It really is about the strength and resilience of the Australian community, economy, infrastructure. What the work that we do, whether it's in small projects, and you might be working for local government, doing something on a regular basis that you don't really like, but the importance of that information is essential for the outcomes that affect everybody, not just your local community. So I think it was very important to actually make sure that James understood all of that, and getting them in front of, let's say, our political leaders or departmental leaders was extremely important. The other side as well is that I had got funding from, and I've worked with the local government sector for quite a few years in one way or another, whether it's architecture or infrastructure. And the information that local government was getting was written by state for state. And I know because we did most of the writing for state. ARRB is generally a ghostwriter of many standards. But I'd seen the flaw in that. They weren't in the language of local government. It wasn't the information that local government needed, in my opinion. And so I got funding from the Commonwealth to reimagine what local government guides would look like. And James was extremely helpful in that, because what I wanted was them to actually be suitable to be read at James's level, as well as the senior management level. And so James managed to give me feedback in that. And I, a bit selfish, I did recognize early on that James would be a great resource, so that the mentorship was going both ways. He was able to advise me on what works for young engineers working in a local government environment. And obviously I was hopefully providing him with the right advice and the right connections, which would further his ambitions.
And that's, yeah, it was one of the, I guess, more interesting things, is Alan really, I guess, made a point to show that, you know, this is how it works in the real world, in essence. So as he mentioned, a lot of the funding that does come to projects, how local governments function, a lot of the grant programs and whatnot does come from federal politics or state politics. And a component of that, which is something that we probably all notice, especially if we work within local government, is a lot of the, I guess, the projects that have, I guess, capital projects, where there's a tangible item that is, I guess, can be seen from it, will often be prioritized over, I guess, things like maintenance and whatnot, which is, I guess, a challenge that we face, especially within our council, making sure that our maintenance budgets are maintained. But more so, I guess, the valuable lesson from that is, irrespective of, I guess, political allegiance, was just understanding the, I guess, the process through which the whole of, I guess, infrastructure, I guess, comes from, in essence. So, you know, obviously, depending on how the money is distributed, depends on what projects can happen, which then depends on how that money is spent, and then the benefit to the community. So having that first, I guess, meeting was a real, I guess, insight into how public works or public infrastructure works. And then that also, I guess, greatly aided with our first meeting of the Coffee Cup Challenge. So as I mentioned before, with the Coffee Cup Challenge, there's, I guess, three main parts to it. There's your career direction, potential challenges, and then also how to overcome those challenges. So in our first meeting, we basically met at ARRB's Sydney office. And there I was able to basically have a really good in-depth discussion with Alan about, you know, where do I see myself fitting within industry? You know, is that in a technical role? Is that in a more managerial role? Is that even in infrastructure management outside of potentially engineering? And we basically were able to have those discussions, and that was, I guess, kind of provided by almost a pro forma, has acted to act as a bit of guidance that comes with the Coffee Cup Challenge. And we're able to have a really productive, I guess, discussion there and work out a 5-year plan as to how I could potentially develop skills that would help me lead into, I guess, a direction that I wanted to go. And obviously, one thing I know for certain is I don't know where I'll be within 5 years, but I have some idea about that direction, and some of those skills that I guess are needed for those directions I guess what's important. And that's obviously transferable amongst a lot of sects of industries, whether it be within the structural domain or water or I guess geotechnical. So yeah, and obviously, yeah, you go on.
James, I mean, I think it's important to recognize that the Coffee Cup Challenge guide was very useful in sort of setting some of the outcomes, because you need to have something to work to. Now, did we stick to that? No, you would work out for yourself what actually works within your relationship. because it is a relationship. You build trust with one another, because the better the mentee and mentor understand one another, the more appropriate the advice and discussions you can have.
And that's exactly right. And yeah, it's just one of those things where you have someone there that does have a lot more experience, but their experiences might be different, but at least they have some advice on potentially what the, I guess, the effect of some of your decisions or actions might be. And moving on to that second component of this, which is identifying potential challenges. I was fortunate enough to go to ARRB's head offices in Melbourne, where we had our second meeting. And I co-aligned this as well with my undergraduate thesis that I was doing, where I was able to basically almost interview some, I guess, technical leaders within Australia, which definitely someone at my level would not really ever have the opportunity to do. And amongst writing endless amounts of notes, I was able to, I guess, further develop my almost holistic understanding about, I guess, infrastructure within Australia and also internationally in some regards as well. So able to understand the challenges associated with things like implementing, smart infrastructure, as well as moving to, I guess, demand-based rather than supply-based, I guess, infrastructure, things like that. And that was also co-aligned with basically a training hub or workshop that was co-running at the same time, and with the ETN, and that was co-organised or coordinated with the ARRB as well as RMIT. And that gave me the opportunity to speak to a range of students as well as professors from overseas, and I was able to make some really great contacts with some PhD students that were looking at implementing smart sensors into major roads. And it just goes back to that more, I guess, something that I've discovered about myself is I find a significant amount of value in talking with people, and I find that that's where I gain the most value from. So, for instance, I can read a textbook, we all can, but I found that just for me, being more of an audio learner, that talking to someone, I was able to, I guess, absorb a lot more of that information. And obviously gaining as wide a breadth of experiences or different opinions as possible is really, I guess, a major component that's been part of my career development, where when I do have to make a decision, I can consider all the, I guess, the different opinions I've heard, the evidence that's available, as well as in my own opinion or interpretation of what the most desirable outcome will be. And that has real world application and also, I guess, a real world, I guess, positive measure on efficiency and results and accuracy as well, which has been incredibly valuable. But I think it was one of Alan's using his seniority a bit to let me speak with some of these, I guess, these leaders, which was, yeah, definitely extremely valuable for my learning thus far. So I don't know if you had any comments about, I guess, that second meeting, Alan, or why you thought that it would be useful for me to talk to some of these people?
Well, obviously, to be honest, the engineers coming through now have a better understanding about the importance of the circular economy, reusable materials. Are we building the right roads now for the future? When it comes to assurance models, everybody's talking about performance standards now rather than prescriptive standards, which makes older engineers very nervous because they like to state that something measures X by Y, whereas performance standards says it has to achieve this performance outcome, and the importance of applying assurance models over that. So the introduction of smart technologies, how is data being collected? How are you undertaking condition assessments nowadays? What is it going to look like in 3 years' time? Are we building with possible heavy goods vehicles, truck platooning coming on board? Will that not put a heavier burden on the pavement structure in specific positions within the pavement structure? So does our road designs have to change? So it's important, I felt it not just important, but essential that you do actually have a good understanding of not just where infrastructure is at now, but where it's going. Because quite frankly, the age of a pavement, the pavement that we build now will be around when autonomous vehicles are using them in the future. So what we're building now is what's going to get used in the future. So it's all about getting on board that. And there's an opportunity there for all young engineers to progress that and to try and convince the older engineers who may be sort of stuck in their old ways of doing things, to influence them and try and benefit Australia as a whole to a much more efficient and viable future than we have at the moment. So that second meeting was most important because it was a different phase. It was about, okay, here are the people who actually influence infrastructure and how money is spent. Now hear about what are the actual disruptive technologies and pathways of behavior that are going to influence how infrastructure looks in the future. It's your future. It's not mine. So that was where I think the second meeting and the format of the second meeting was defined.
Yeah, and part of this as well is not only being able to speak to some of these, I guess, more experienced people on things like where the future holds, things like, I guess, the progressions of road safety, implementation of smart infrastructure. But I was also able to then speak to the, I guess, more technical side of it, where I was able to, I guess, have a tour of the laboratory testing that ARRB do, which makes up, I guess, a large proportion of the work they do, being the Australian Roads and Research Board. Obviously looking at pavement degradation, recycled materials, new materials, things like that. And I was actually able to see almost a real world application of academia. So being in local government, it's economically unviable to, do $20,000 worth of testing for a residential road. So the academia obviously applies, but not to the same degree as it does if you were doing materials testing and research. So this was, I guess, a great opportunity to see all the real world application of academia, where ARRB's partnerships with various universities result in, I guess, the future developments of technology and things like, pavement materials, for instance, or whether it be road safety, or in that particular reference I made before, how to, I guess, implement, smart infrastructure, whether it be, electric sensors that measure strain within the pavement, or whether it be, I guess, flow and working out how to, I guess, traffic management. So I was able to basically see the real world application of academia, see the research that goes on behind engineering guides. So during my thesis, part of what I did was basically develop a table, and it gave me a whole new appreciation for the effort or information and research that goes in behind a simple table. And being able to speak to the people that were doing the research, the PhD students that were, I guess, undertaking that aspect of it, was another just, I guess, further value adding to my, I guess, existing knowledge, and further developing my kind of professional development. And then there's also the opportunity to network with people. And as I mentioned before, it's networking and meeting people has been one of the most valuable things that I've done. And this is a particular case was no different. And then obviously being able to partake in a workshop gave me some hard skills as well. I guess as a reflection, it's Alan and I have talked about this before, but obviously the Coffee Cup starts off as an informal mentoring program. And I think we embody what would be considered a success story from it. So we've become, I guess, lifelong friends. Alan's able to facilitate that support network for me as well, whether it be the personal or professional. I'm able to come to him with any question that I have, and he's able to offer me his advice, which is, I guess, extremely valuable, especially given the rapid rate that industry is changing. it's very good to have that reassurance is the wrong word, but have that ability to, if I have an idea, you know, I've thought of this, is that something that could potentially work? Alan's got some advice on to whether that will, I guess, first and foremost, but also the potential implications of what that might mean. He's helped me with immense personal and professional development, which has been challenging at times, but it's also been incredibly rewarding. And then there's also the guidance on not only my individual goals, but also group-based goals. So some of you may know, Will recently became the IPWEA New South Wales ambassador. And he also had a really good chat with Alan, and I might have talked Alan up a bit too much, but he also asked Alan if he'd be willing to do the coffee cup challenge with him. And then subsequently, we decided to do almost a group-based one to see if we could, I guess, achieve some of the strategic goals or the direction that myself and Will envisaged that we could go with Young IPWEA, and also that advocating for younger professionals and facilitating those opportunities. And then there's also, I guess, just the ability to share ideas. We live in a much more collaborative society today, where I don't think anyone these days would believe that by themselves they could come up with the best solution for a problem. And gaining as much information as possible, different opinions, different experiences, allows everyone to, I guess, work together. And that's something that's been highlighted through this relationship with Alan, not only his impact on me, but also my impact on him. As generally it's considered I guess, more of a one-way relationship. But I guess being young and unbiased by past experiences means that there's, I guess, the opportunity to be a bit more creative, a bit more innovative, which I'm sure Alan will touch on this, but that can be of, I guess, benefit to, I guess, your more traditional thinking. But that's essentially the, I guess, short summary of the value that I've had out of, I guess, participating in the Coffee Cup Challenge with Alan. And I definitely look forward to the many years that come from it. So I'll let Alan speak now.
Yeah, no, frankly, he's a bloody pest. But no, in all seriousness, it is a two-way benefit. Interacting with James has actually given me better insight into my own staff. When you've got something external from your business and you're getting it's much easier to get an unbiased external opinion than it is to get that opinion from somebody who works for you. It can usually be rather guarded. So from my perspective, James is never guarded. He will tell me what he thinks from the perspective of a young engineer, what we could be doing better in how we listen. The dynamic has changed quite a lot in industry. I mean, there's no way I would challenge my boss when I was young about anything. What they said was it. And the new generation is one who wants to challenge. And I think it's a good thing. It's a bit difficult sometimes because you've got to make the final decision. But no, at the end of the day, it allows us who benefit greatly from this sector to give back. And if you see something in someone, or you believe that you've got that something you really want to progress and you've got the passion to do it, then reach out to a mentor or a potential mentor. As I say, if you get rejected, so what? As they say, there's plenty more fish in the sea. Try someone else. There's lots of experts around, and I'm sure there's lots more people like me willing to give it a go. You'll be able to tell from that first meeting whether you click with that person or whether they're just going to go through the motions. But no, it's been highly beneficial to me in my career and my understanding. And as I say, it has helped with me managing our staff in ARRB. I mean, we've got over 200 personnel. We've got a high percentage of young people. And believe it or not, I can be quite intolerant. So I suppose it's made me more tolerant.
My
By the
pleasure.
way, we've also got, which might actually benefit all of you, ARRB also is responsible for the National Interest Services Library. Now, it is the largest repository of infrastructure, papers, and information of anywhere in the world. It's linked to Americans, it's linked to the Europeans, it's got rail, pavement, lots of papers, lots of conferences, material, and you are our stakeholders, so you have access to that information. So have a look on the ARRB website and look up the National Infrastructure Services portal, and that will give you access to anything you might need.
Thank you so much. Oh, sorry. Thank you so much, James and Alan.